What's up? We've got a stomachache, but we're gonna film today anyway. So this is a continuation of the video from the previous week about political polarization online. So we talked about homophily, which is basically when you only ever relate to people who believe in the same thing as you. And today we'll talk about something that we touched on before, which is source selectivity. So let's talk about source abundance. Source abundance. We live in a world where we have an abundance of sources. Basically, this was inconceivable to all of the people in all of the centuries before us. We have long, as humanity, suffered from source scarcity. It used to be that we had so little sources of information that all of those sources of information were so important and had to be kind of factually correct, triple checked, approved by experts. Remember, like at a certain point, the church used to keep all of the books. Only a very, very, very few people were taught how to read because, that was seen as something that was for the elites. So, because of gatekeeping and because just of general lack of resources, we've always suffered from source scarcity. But now, in the span of a very few number of years, we are now suffering from source abundance. And likewise now, if you're trying to look for one topic, let's say, I'm trying to look up things about bananas. There's now 30 million sources that I can read about bananas, about all sorts of things, recipes for bananas, the science of bananas, what you can do with bananas. So there's now so much information about any one thing. Because of an overabundance of sources, we now have the luxury to be able to choose our sources. That's not a luxury that people before us has had. Because again, there was very few things to choose from. Remember, as I said before about public history, that's why we can rewrite historical public narratives, because now people who were silenced or who didn't really have the means to be able to get their stories out there, now they have a place where they can speak, and it's very easy for them to speak. Now, the everyday person can put up a video that can make you laugh. You don't have to be dependent on, waiting for a movie or a celebrity to be able to do something interesting. But people think that just because you have an abundance of sources, then your choice, your ability to choose, must mean that you are kind of smarter than the average bear. Specifically, they think that because they can choose their own sources, they must be informed. In other words, since I can choose my own sources, I'm not being brainwashed by any narrative because I chose this. I went through all of the things and I chose this thing, and therefore it must be reliable because I went through that effort and I'm a smart person. So it's usually like that now. But of course, that's not true, as we know already, because of our biases, because of, again, just general abundance. You can't actually say that you went through everything because you just don't have the ability or the time to be able to go through everything. And because there's a lot of actual strategy that comes into presenting sources, when people want to change minds, they adapt specific strategies to be able to convince people that their source is more authoritative than others. How do journals and websites that obviously peddle just opinion pieces instead of actual kind of data-driven science pieces, how do they become more trusted to people? It's not because necessarily the people who read them are stupid, although they are biased. They're actively strategizing to be able to look as like they're the most authoritative source that should be chosen above other sources. Some of these strategies, presenting opinions and perspectives as fact, it's very hard to distinguish the two nowadays, where being able to speak about opinion is kind of so valued because of freedom of speech. So in the way that something is written, they're gonna get an extract that is convenient for them without the full sentence or the full context and just present that. And a person reading it who doesn't, again, have the time or inclination to check who wrote this, what are their previous biases, can I double check their sources because this is a secondary source. People who don't do that, they're inclined to believe it because it's written like it's a factual article. And when you're presented with a website full of these, and the website again already speaks to your personal biases and experience, then you really have no reason not to believe them, right? They're the ones that are speaking the truth. Everybody else are the ones that are blowing it out of proportion. So presenting opinions as facts is one thing. Another is using expertise to legitimize agendas. This one's a bit of a tricky one. You can always find an academic to be able to believe in your one thing. But the question is, in a pool of 30 academics, is your one of the majority? Or is he one and then all the other 29 are wait, dude, you're wrong. But you're not looking at that. You're looking at the fact that him, he already believes in what I believe, and he's a doctor, so therefore it legitimizes my belief. So that's what people do. They get experts who lean towards their way, then you're not inclined to believe all of the rest of the people who say all of these other things, even if there's a vast majority, because you're looking at the one person. Actually, if anything, that person having a different opinion only makes them seem like some kind of brave whistleblower, and just makes you kind of double down on the fact that they must be like the ultimate person who is correct. Remember, this is kind of how anti-vax stuff started, because there was kind of one specific study about how vaccines cause what was it? Autism or something in babies. Like, one person said that. It didn't take like 10 people, it didn't take 20 people, it took one person to say it. And since then, there's been a bunch of studies that have delegitimized it. It's the same thing with like diet culture, right? Coca-Cola was able to get 1 or 2 scientists or experts to be able to say, hey, guess what? It's not about the food that you eat, it's about the exercise that you do. So you can drink as much Coke as you want, you just have to exercise. You're just lacking exercise. They got a few people to say that. Hundreds of other scientists came forward and said, you know, that's wrong. It's both eating and dieting. But at that point, you know, what was the narrative that was being fueled by money? So people cherry pick expertise to be able to legitimize their own biases. And the third is just very simple. It's using interfaces to make things look legitimate. It's making websites that are pretty, it's putting up nice images, striking images, because it looks like that. You're already inclined to believe it. You're like, oh, the domain name isn't something like, I am a person who believes this. No, it's just a very kind of everydaynews.com. So you have no reason not to think that this isn't a news site that leans towards one thing. But remember, all news is biased, all news is competition, and these sources also compete with each other. Something that is more readable, something that is more accessible, it's in a language that people understand, that automatically will draw people to them more than others. And that's one thing that will make them trust that source above other sources. And then none of this, again, is helped by the fact that people also kind of want to be oppressed. They kind of also want to be the hero. People want to be able to feel like they're the party that's fighting for something that's right. If there's attempts to suppress them, or if there's attempts to disprove their sources, then even more they'll say like they're just being silenced by big media, by big tech, by big pharma, by all the bigs. And this is how conspiracy theories like QAnon kind of exploded, especially because there's this really good article called The Gamification of QAnon, and if I can find it, I'll link it in the description. And it talks about how, along with the stuff that we said, which is homophily and personal biases and source selectivity, it became just a thing of like, no matter what you presented them, they always find a way to kind of manipulate it into a way that fits their narrative. So be aware of the way that people kind of manipulate information and information presentation and source presentation to be able to look authoritative. Really look into where these sources come from, and again, I always say this, be aware of your own biases. I can't believe I wrote this, but I'll just read it. So, you might say, wait, hold up, I get my information about baby-eating capitalists from the dark web and all other sorts of places where I do check the sources and I do confirm they're right. I'm not some sheep or some person lacking in digital literacy. I know exactly what I'm doing. You know, that might be true, actually. A lot of very digitally literate people, a lot of very smart people, tend to kind of fall for things that are generally classified to be along the lines of conspiracy theories, or are actually more likely to become more politically polarized or extremist than other people. If you're defensive about all of this, then you know everything, and that's an attitude thing now. And the second is that you're already primed to believe things that you believe will help you feel important and will help complement things that you already believe. I'm inviting you to have a bit more self-awareness and to be able to tackle actual discussions with a rhetoric that doesn't just benefit you. Of course, at the end of the day, I made these videos because of the Filipino elections, because I'm extremely anti-Marcos, but I'm also saying it because the people who do support my current presidential candidate of choice, who's Lenny Robredo, tend to be quite complacent. They tend to feel quite superior to the other side. Everything you feel is exactly what the other side feels. We need to fight for things in a way that's more conscientious. If you enjoyed this content, then, you know, like and subscribe, or don't, or come by whenever this pops up, or don't. I just want to be able to change people's attitudes bit by bit, or make them think a bit harder about the way that they use social media. And if this has helped, then that's already very rewarding for me. And good luck and good day. And I'm not sure when this will come out, so I'll just say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, I guess. So, ooh.